You ever envy someone who doesn't overthink everything? That person who sleeps peacefully without replaying yesterday's conversation 100 times? Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the sharpest minds of the 19th century, spent his entire life trying to answer one simple question: why are intelligent people so damn miserable? At 26, he wrote a work that would revolutionize Western philosophy, but the world ignored him for 3 decades. Imagine creating something brilliant and hearing nothing but silence. Schopenhauer lectured at the University of Berlin at the exact same time as Hegel, the celebrity philosopher of that era. Want to know how many students showed up to Schopenhauer's lectures? 5. To Hegel's? Hundreds. That didn't break him, but it fundamentally changed how he saw humanity. He wrote, "The more intelligent a person is, the more genuinely stupid he will find the average man." This wasn't arrogance. This was the exhaustion of speaking a language nobody else understood. Schopenhauer lived alone in Frankfurt with only his poodle, whom he named Atman, Sanskrit for world soul, because he believed animals were more honest than humans. When neighbors asked why he avoided company, he'd say, "I choose solitude not because I hate people, but because I value my peace." But here's the paradox. This lonely genius left us a secret that could change the lives of millions. He understood what most never will. High intelligence isn't an advantage, it's a burden. And if you've ever felt like your own mind is a prison, Schopenhauer knew exactly how to turn it into wings. The first curse of intelligence is the ability to see too far ahead. Sounds like a superpower, right? Schopenhauer called it a hellish gift. Picture this, you're sitting in a meeting, and while everyone's celebrating the new project, you've already spotted 3 ways it'll fail. You predict a relationship conflict a month before it erupts. You sense someone's dishonesty while others just smile and nod. The philosopher wrote in The World as Will and Representation that an intelligent person lives simultaneously in 3 times: the unchangeable past, the uncertain future, and rarely in the present moment. It's a constant state of anxiety disguised as preparedness. Nietzsche, who idolized Schopenhauer, added his own twist: to live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. The more you know about how the world works, the less comfort you find in it. A study from Lakehead University showed that people with higher IQ scores are significantly more prone to anxiety disorders and excessive rumination. Why? Because their brains won't shut off. They analyze when they should just feel. They hunt for danger when they should savor the moment. Schopenhauer said it perfectly. An ordinary person sees a tree. An intelligent person sees the shadow it casts. And that shadow is always darker than the tree itself. The second curse is unrealistic expectations. Schopenhauer wasn't disappointed in humanity because people were bad. He was disappointed because he expected the impossible from them. When your mind operates at full capacity, you automatically assume others see what you see. You explain something once and wonder why they didn't get it. You create something flawless and can't understand why others settle for mediocrity. The philosopher wrote to his publisher, "I cannot write for those incapable of thinking deeper than a newspaper column." This wasn't elitism. This was the fatigue of constantly dumbing himself down. The perfectionism of intelligent people doesn't come from pride. It comes from pain. You see an ideal that nobody else can see, and when reality falls short of that ideal, you suffer. Everyone else lives comfortably with good enough. You can't. Vincent van Gogh painted over 800 works in 10 years and sold exactly 1 during his lifetime. Not because he was a bad artist, but because his standards didn't match his era's standards. Schopenhauer lived the same story with philosophy. Modern psychologists call this the curse of knowledge. Once you understand something deeply, you can no longer look at it simply. You lose the ability to be careless, and every tiny flaw that others overlook becomes glaring to you. The third and most painful curse is intellectual isolation. Schopenhauer described it as living in a room where everyone speaks a language you don't understand, or more accurately, where you speak a language nobody else understands. You can be in a hall with 100 people and feel like an astronaut floating in deep space. The philosopher wrote, "Society affects most people like fire on wax and sun on clay. The former it softens, the latter it hardens. Society doesn't soften the intelligent person, it drains them." Because you're constantly translating your thoughts into simplified language, constantly nodding at conversations that feel hollow, constantly hiding your true depth so you don't intimidate people. A fascinating study from the London School of Economics revealed a paradox. People with higher IQ feel happier when alone than when surrounded by friends. This is the exact opposite of the general population. Why? Because for an intelligent person, genuine dialogue is rare. Most conversations are just exchanging pleasantries. Schopenhauer had exactly one real friend in his entire life, his poodle. He said, "The more I get to know people, the more I love my dog." This isn't misanthropy. It's the realization that most people don't want to think deeper than the surface, and you simply can't help it. You're like a violinist who ended up in a world where everyone only listens to drums. And the question isn't whether drums are bad. The question is that nobody hears your melody. But Schopenhauer found a way out of this labyrinth. His first wisdom sounds paradoxical. Solitude isn't punishment, it's privilege. The philosopher wrote in The Wisdom of Life, "If you can't enjoy your own company, you're condemned to suffer in any other." This isn't a call to become a hermit. It's an invitation to stop fearing the silence around you. Thomas Mann, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature, said, "Solitude gives birth to the original in us, to beauty unfamiliar and powerless, to poetry. But also, it gives birth to the opposite, to the perverse, the illicit, the absurd." Schopenhauer chose the former path. He transformed loneliness into creative power. Look at history's greatest minds. Isaac Newton spent most of his life alone. Emily Dickinson wrote 1,800 poems while barely leaving her house. Albert Einstein needed hours of daily solitude for his mind to wander freely. They weren't escaping the world. They were creating space for themselves. Schopenhauer's practical advice: learn to distinguish between loneliness and being alone. Being alone is when you want someone, but nobody's there. Loneliness is when you consciously choose to be with yourself. The first is pain, the second is freedom. Modern research confirms introversion isn't a disorder. It's a variant of normal. Roughly 1/3 of the population are introverts who recharge their energy in solitude. If you're one of them, you're not some weird outcast. You just speak a different energetic language. Schopenhauer's second wisdom: your mind is a tool, not your master. You don't need to analyze every moment of your life. The philosopher understood there are domains where intellect hinders rather than helps. Love, art, spontaneous joy. These are territories where reason has no business entering. Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." But you know what he didn't write? That genius has the right to analyze every kiss, every sunset, every conversation. Imagine watching a starry sky, and instead of feeling awe, you start calculating the distance to Andromeda. You hug someone you love, while simultaneously analyzing whether their emotions are genuine. This is the trap of intelligence. Albert Camus, the French philosopher, put it simply: one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Even in absurdity, you can find beauty if you stop searching for logic. Modern psychology calls this overthinking, excessive rumination. When you replay one situation hundreds of times in your head, hunting for the perfect solution. But life isn't mathematics. There's no single correct answer here. Practical advice: identify zones where your mind should stay quiet. When you're dancing, don't think about technique. When you're kissing, don't analyze biochemistry. When you're laughing, don't search for the reason. Allow yourself to sometimes just be human, not an eternal observer. The third wisdom: your people exist, they're just rare. Schopenhauer died in 1860, never witnessing his true fame. But 20 years after his death, the entire intellectual world was reading his works. Nietzsche called him his teacher. Freud built parts of his theory on Schopenhauer's ideas. Wagner dedicated his music to him. The philosopher found his community. He just didn't live to see it. But you're living in a different era. The internet did the impossible. It gathered thinking people from every corner of the planet. You can find your tribe without leaving home. Philosophical forums, literary clubs, scientific discussions, it's all accessible. Schopenhauer said, "It's better to be alone than among people where you constantly have to play a role." So don't force yourself to fit into circles where you feel alien. Seek those who speak your language. They exist. Maybe it's 3 in 1,000. But those 3 are worth more than 997. Practical advice. Go where they discuss what genuinely moves you. Not to parties for the sake of parties, but to gatherings where ideas are born. Not to chats for small talk, but to spaces where people think. If you haven't found your people, maybe you've just been looking in the wrong places. Your community isn't in the town square. It's in the library, the museum, the small cafe where Bach is playing. And here's the final, most unexpected wisdom from Schopenhauer. Sometimes play dumber than you are. This isn't betraying yourself. It's strategic wisdom. The philosopher understood. If you constantly display your intellect, you build a wall between yourself and the world. People don't like feeling stupid, so sometimes hide your depth to give others space for their depth. This isn't hypocrisy. It's empathy. Socrates used this technique 2,500 years ago. He pretended not to know, so he could unlock knowledge in others. It's called Socratic irony. Schopenhauer went further. He advised using intelligence selectively, not totally. There are moments when you need to be the smartest in the room. There are moments when you just need to be a human in the room. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Your intellect is a sword, but you don't walk around with a naked blade all the time. You sheath it and only draw it when truly necessary. The rest of the time, you just walk the road, enjoying the scenery. So Schopenhauer's secret is simple yet revolutionary. Your mind isn't a curse if you learn to master it. Not it controlling you, but you controlling it. Accept solitude as a gift, not punishment. Turn off analysis where you need to feel. Seek your people, not all people. And remember, sometimes the smartest decision is to play a little simpler. This is my reading of Schopenhauer through the lens of modern life. Maybe you'll find something completely different in his philosophy. Maybe you won't agree with a single word, and that's beautiful. Because true wisdom isn't about accepting someone else's answers. It's about finding your own questions. Schopenhauer spent his life searching for peace of mind. We can walk that path faster because he already paved the road. All that remains is to not be afraid to step on it.